and welcome to the latest Edit Girls interview, where we're chatting with the Emmy award-winning post team behind season 3 of A Black Lady Sketch Show, created by Robyn Thede. So welcome, Steph, Robyn, Bradinn, and Taylor, and huge congratulations. So A Black Lady Sketch Show is an American sketch comedy created by Robyn Thede. There have been 3 seasons of hilarious characters and scenarios led by a cast of incredible and super funny Black women. So I would love to, just get to know you guys and your career and your experience of editing the show. So let's start with how you guys got into editing and when you knew that editing was the career for you. Whoever wants to jump in with that moment.
For me, when I was younger, I watched the movie Seven, which I should not have been watching at the time, but I really loved the opening titles. I was just kind of fascinated that you could like create something visually that told a story and there was no words in it, but like you understood what the movie was about immediately. So I kind of just tried to recreate that with my home movie camera and like VHS tapes, and just kind of played around with it, not realizing that that was like a job that you could actually do. And then fast forward to when I moved to LA, I knew I wanted to be involved in TV and film. And so I kind of knocked on every door I could find and landed an assistant editing job. And so when I did that, it kind of clicked. I was like, wait, this is kind of what I was like into when I was younger. Let me explore this further. And so I just kind of worked my way up from there.
Also, I remember having a similar feeling with that opening title sequence. Just
it's so best. Good.
And it holds up. Yeah, I can see it now. Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think my discovery was a little more wholesome and a lot later. I was taking a broadcast journalism class in college, and we had to shoot and cut our own news packages. And I remember starting to digitize everything and organize all my clips and just thinking, oh my God, this is so tedious and who would ever do this? And then the moment I started to kind of arrange all of my footage and, changing the story, basically, I was hooked. I didn't know, it was magical to me in that moment. And I didn't know what it was. I still didn't know it was an actual job or even potential career path for me at the time. But I wanted to, find out more. So I took more film classes in undergrad. And then as soon as I graduated, just jumped into film school, just wanted to know as much as I could. And then I tried to just learn everything about editing that there was to know and started assisting from there and slowly working my way into the chair.
That's so cool. Robyn.
Yeah, so mine is a little baby ass backwards because I actually started, my undergrad was in writing and directing. And I think I initially went to grad school thinking that, well, I kind of needed to get a job in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and didn't think that I could get a job as a female director at the time. So I thought, well, what's something I can do in the industry that's, where I can find work, where I'm trying to work in the industry in some form. And so I sort of fell into editing kind of backwards and sort of landed in a really good school, American Film Institute. And there I just sort of slowly fell in love with the work that was getting done and how to craft a story and how you could even change a story. As a matter of fact, I saw people changing stories from an absolute horror to being a complete comedy, and it was amazing. I'm like, wow, you can do that? That's awesome. So, I think I sort of fell into it thinking sort of in a very, very arrogant way that I could go into filmmaking in some form as a filmmaker, but editing sort of won the day with having a roof over my head, but as well as being able to craft an amazing story out of almost anything. So.
kind of that magic moment, isn't it, when you sort of realize like the power of
The power.
you have. Bradinn, what about you?
Yeah, my villain origin story is not all that dissimilar from Steph's, in that it started with horror movies. My mother was, I don't know why, my mother was a big time horror buff.
I love your
And
mum already.
me too. And at a very inappropriate age, she showed me Candyman, which I think really kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because it was something that I always thought about the older I got, that I would never, ever to this day say Candyman in front of a mirror. And I always thought it was so powerful that even knowing it was completely made up, and even now knowing it's completely made up and knowing the process, you can influence people to do things or not do things, all through the power of filmmaking, and specifically through the edit. And as I was growing up, my dad passed me one of those big cameras that you used VHSs in, and I would shoot stuff in high school, just messing around with friends. And I would stack 2 VCRs on top of each other and do edits that way, where you play one and record on the other, and then fast forward, and then you do edits like that. And it's not that I knew I was editing, but I loved that part. And when I got to college, I initially started as a computer engineer, but like way too much math. And I had no idea that they had it was University of Wisconsin, where we're nowhere near Los Angeles or New York. And I had no idea they had a film program. And so when I started looking for other majors and came across their intro to film class, I was like, oh my God, like I could have some fun here. So I enrolled, and it was an amazing class. The whole major was amazing and really fulfilling. But what I found as I was doing it is I loved the shooting. I loved everything about it. But the most special parts was, at random hours of the night, cutting together the footage and turning it into a story, like Robyn's saying. I mean, that is the movie magic for me. That is the magic part. And I had so much passion for it that when I came out here, that ended up being what I pursued. And I've been loving it ever since.
That's awesome. Thanks, everyone. So the show, how did you all get involved? And I know that for some of you, it's not your first season, but some of you it is. So yeah, where did your A Black Lady Sketch Show journey start? Robyn, your turn.
Actually, it was funny. One of the producers on the show, Denise Davies, she actually went to school with myself and Taylor. And she was the one who, I was a brand new editor. I had just sort of got bumped up from being an assistant. And this was one of the first interviews that I got with a big show. And she's like, okay, I'm going to set you up with Robyn. So, look good, do me proud. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Robyn Didi, you mean? Oh my God, this is going to be crazy. So yeah, that's how. And then I think it was just the interview where I was sort of, I don't even remember it, I don't know what I said to her, but I guess she was impressed somewhere along the line. So.
Those moments where it's all a blur and you're like, you come out the other side and it's like,
yep,
oh, the job.
Great.
What about you, Steph?
For me, so I worked on last season as well, season 2. I was obsessed with season 1 of the show, and a friend of all of ours, Daisha Broadway, edited on the first season of the show. So I think I had always just been texting her asking like, hey, when do we get to see Dr. Hadassah again? Like, when do we get to see Courtroom Kiki again? Like all of these different sketches. And she just knew that I loved the show. And so when there was an opening for season 2, she passed my info to Robyn, who then, I got this email that was like, would you be interested in interviewing for season 2? So I was like, yes, please. Went in, I met with Robyn Thede and Lauren Ashley Smith, who was our head writer and co-EP at the time. We just hit it off. And then shortly after, I was like on the way to the airport to travel overseas, and I got the call that I booked the job. So it was, yeah, it was just really exciting and serendipitous. And this was back in 2019. So we were supposed to start season 2 in March, like the very week that COVID hit in March of 2020. And so we got shut down and didn't start back up until, November of that year. So it's
because there's reference to the pandemic, isn't there, in season 2? Like
barely. There's only like one, I think there's 1 or 2 lines, and then Robyn was like, we're not talking about it at all, like it never happened. This is a world where there was no COVID. So yeah, I think we only mention it like the very top of the season. That's about it.
Yeah, similarly to Steph, Daisha was pretty much the one who got me the interview. I was fortunate enough to work with her on my first editing gig on Twenties, BET's Twenties, and it was just her and I on the show. And so we spent a decent amount of time together, and she saw that I was able to cut and cut comedy well, so she referred me to Robyn. And then I also met with Robyn and Lauren, and we had a great interview. But of course, COVID happened. And then, from that moment on, I think I was on a different schedule than Sketch Show. And so I couldn't make season 2 happen, but was able to come around for season 3. And that's all she wrote.
And for me, I third on Daisha Broadway being an integral part of me coming onto the show. I had spoken with the team a little bit earlier about season 2, about interviewing for season 2, but I was slated to go on to American Horror Story at the same time. So I asked them, please ask me again for season 3, because I absolutely adored season 1. And by the time season 2 aired, I was in love with the show. And, I think that Daisha and Steph, talked me up. And by the time season 3 rolled around, I was able to interview for it, and ended up booking it. And I couldn't have been more happy.
So the show is, I guess it just makes such a big impact on you working on it, other people. It's just created such an incredible following. What does it mean to work on a show like this?
I will say the first sketch I saw, it was the first sketch of the first season. And I don't know, Steph, if anyone remembers the actual name of it, it was when they're on the plane, and it's a Luster's commercial or Lotion commercial. And I thought to myself, I'd never seen anything that just perfectly exemplified me, my life, all the women in my life. And I was like, I must cut this or be around this in some way. It was, I don't know, it was just so great to see something that reflected me, but like the nuances in my life that you never see, that no one really ever understands. See, broadcasted for the world to see. I don't know, I was so impressed. I thought the audacity of the show was what kind of hooked me, because it's kind of, you never know how that audience is going to act, or how an audience is going to act to that. But I loved that Robyn didn't care. Like, she just wanted to make something for Black women. And it was cathartic. It gave me this feeling of, I don't know, support, that, understanding from a whole, like from across the world, or creators that didn't know who I was, understood what I was going through. So even if it's as simple as, ashy skin, but
the lotion.
The show meant, just as a fan, the show meant so much. So to actually cut on it and contribute, my own experiences to comedy was everything. It's almost too much. Like, I don't know what to do with myself sometimes.
Is there that fine line? I always have it like, there are things that I love, and it's almost like I want to work, I'll be part of it, but actually sometimes I want to I want to just consume it, you know, I don't want to see all the cogs and things in the background. But was there ever like that kind of feeling, or was it always just love for the show?
Oh, I did both. While I was working, I would watch like even cuts from season 2 just to, you know, see how they cut it together, and then also as a press, or I guess a fan, sit back and enjoy it. And that would also kind of influence my decisions in season 3. So yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah, I think that this show, like, I mean, similar to what Taylor's saying, it just feels like seeing myself and my friends represented on screen is like just a huge thing for me. You know, I was, before working on this, I was like thinking about like, hey, when is like the last time I feel like I've ever felt like represented, or like someone that I know has like been represented on screen? And I couldn't really name something that felt as like authentic as this. So I think it's, you know, special in that way, but also in the way that Robyn Thede has, you know, hired both in front of and behind the camera. You know, the fact that our team is so diverse is just like astounding to me, especially in the post world, because it's just not a diverse industry, you know, in general. But to be able to like just have the camaraderie that I think we all have. And, you know, last season, our whole post team was women and non-binary people, which I'm like, I've never seen that. So it's just, yeah, I think that like Robyn values so much authenticity in front of and behind the camera that it's just such a like, it just means a lot in seeing how it's done. And I hope other places will follow suit as well.
Yeah, I think I have to reiterate what both Taylor and Steph have said. I was a huge fan of the show. I think I didn't even know it was like an HBO show. I think I saw it on YouTube for the first time, you know, the clips of it. And mine was the Angela Bassett Bad Bitch support group, which is still one of my, it's just hilarious. It's so funny. And it's, you know, it's really, you know, that it's sort of that thing where, you know, the support group of sort of this idea of, you know, Black women, you know, your face got this, you know what I mean? It was so great. And then to go into Ashy Sunday and have her be the bad bitch of darkness was like it's still one of my favorite things. But even like there's a small sketch in the last episode called like the Campbell voter one, which I got to pull footage from season 1 footage of you know, vote for Campbell for cell block C. And it's just, you know, Gabrielle Dennis is just one of my favorites. She just, like, her facial expressions and her physical work, and, you know, her whole thing. And I think seeing, like, there's, like they said, you don't really get to see that a lot from any other sketches. I mean, you know, name one where you have so many different characters, so many different roles, so many different unique stories that you're telling from a Black perspective. What's the one you did, Steph, with the biblical one with Resurrection. They're just hilarious, that thing, you know. So I feel like we have such unique stories from a unique perspective, and you just don't get to see that anywhere else. And that's what, just, you know, time and again. And then you get callbacks that, you know, fans of the show has been watching characters, you know, like Dr. Hadassah is just a mastermind of, you know, time and space now. So, you know, I think that's, you know, that's fun for people to come back and watch. So yeah, you know.
And you know, for me, I guess I would come from a couple different directions, you know, echoing what everybody's talking about with this team. You know, when I joined, I was very cognizant of the fact that, you know, in the previous year, this was 3 women of color, and you know, a largely all women pool of talent on both sides of the camera. And you know, I didn't want to interrupt that, and I'm very grateful to all these women, you know, on our post team here and in production for allowing me to participate and be part of this with them. And, you know, while I'm not a Black woman, I am married to a Black woman, and we did watch the show together all the time. My wife at the time was an attorney, and I remember the courtroom Kiki sketch. I think I watched it first before she had seen it, and I grabbed her and I was like, okay, you got to watch this one. And from then we were both, you know, she was an instant fan of the show. And you know, there were so many pieces of it that I could tell resonated with her, but that resonated with me too, and seeing them be a part of her life and my sister's life and all these friends that I have around me. And, you know, I thought it was amazing to be able to just be part of that and to contribute to that. And for that, I'm really thankful.
I think if I'm talking, you know, from a white woman's perspective, there's so much that I relate to and understand as well. Like so much of it all, you know, I just feel like, yeah, there's something like you fall in love with the characters completely, and you're sort of so pleased to keep seeing them kind of coming back. Which leads me on to like your sort of favorites. So we touched on it a little bit, but maybe we start with from this season and what you cut, like yourself. So a scene that you cut, like what was one of your, you know, favorite scenes to cut? Bradinn, you.
Oh man. I think my favorite sketch was Product Purge, which was the first sketch of the season. It was the most intimidating sketch to me when I had looked at it because of the scale and the ambition of it. But it, you know, it had so many components that were hilarious and big action pieces, and I just, man, I had so much fun cutting that. From the big speech Robyn gives at the beginning, you know, when we started, she said, I want this to be like Braveheart. And it, you know, it immediately popped this thing into my mind where I was like, okay, I need this to be that epic type of music where it's got that Eastern feel, and you know, to them running and trampling all over everything, that had to be high octane action. And then you hit the beauty supply store, and there's like this screeching halt. Like there's just so many elements in that sketch that just kind of did this, which I think is one of my favorite parts about editing in general, is to hit those roller coasters and to bring everything, you know, rushing forward and then screeching to a halt and then pushing it forward again. And they were literally doing that throughout the sketch. And yeah, that was definitely, I definitely have some favorites in this season, but that was probably near the top.
It's a great sketch. What about you, Steph?
I think that my favorite, so I had a couple of favorites, but my very favorite one this season was Dr. Hadassah Career Day. That I think is my favorite character on this like whole series. I just love Dr. Hadassah, but this particular sketch was supposed to be in season 2, right? It's Dr. Hadassah coming to like talk to a whole class full of kids. And they couldn't shoot it because of COVID, because they couldn't film the kids. So I had been thinking about it for so long, like since early 2020, I've been thinking about this sketch, and I was like, I really hope they bring it back, and I really hope that I get to cut it, because I was like, I know exactly what song I'm going to throw in there. There's like a song at the end that I've been like, since the very first table read in like January of 2020, I've been like, this is the song that has to be in this sketch. I don't know how, but it's got to be. And then, you know, you just go on this ride with Dr. Hadassah. You see her fall in love, you see her as a child, you see just kind of how she would interact with children. So it's kind of just, and then on top of that, her improv with Ashley Nicole Black is just so good in that sketch. So I think that that's probably, if I had to name a favorite, I think I would pick that one from this season.
I feel really sad for her, like when they start to like
Yeah, there's
Be mean and yeah. Robyn, what was your favorite sketch to cut in this season?
So yeah, it's definitely Ashy Sunday with the spelling bee coming in a close second. Just because, you know, Ashy Sunday, like I said, you know, is sort of, for me, at least in my mind, a continuation of the bad bitch support group with the ultimate bad bitch of darkness. But yeah, I think it's just the journey. It's Ashley and her, you know, her journey trying to find lotion with everybody in the world. And, you know, we had a lot of hilarious supporting characters. You know, you see Sky running through, and Gabrielle Dennis, you know, as the soccer mom. And, you know, it was a great journey. But the spelling bee also was really fun to cut to. And you know, you get to sneak in things that you think are funny, like, you know, I think in the spelling bee, they there was a moment where Ashley says something like, you know, she quotes, "Call me Michaela Cole because I may destroy you." And I had just finished watching that. And I was like, yes, you know, so,
yeah,
it's hilarious. So yeah, those are my two. I cheated and said two. Sorry.
No, too loud. Taylor.
I mean, yeah, if I could cheat and say like the whole season, it was tough because I think every week the show came out, I had a new favorite sketch and character, and I just couldn't decide. But I think I landed on Coach Butler from Track Girl Magic because because Robyn as Coach Butler was fantastic. Like, her improv was hilarious, and it was really hard to kind of just pick, you know, one or two takes from, you know, a certain section of the sketch. I wanted to leave everything in. But I think I loved the sketch most, or I was able to at least land on that one because, you know, I've been kind of playing sports my entire life, my whole, like, yeah, from maybe age 8 until 25. I had a Coach Butler in my life, and especially when I lived in Georgia, and she nailed it. It, like, I don't know, it warms my heart to cut that scene and have like Carrie Champion in it as well. Was, yeah, I was like screaming inside with joy, not pain. Yeah, I mean, it was super fun to cut. I was laughing all the way through, and I feel like that's what's so great about this show, is it doesn't really feel like work at all.
So in terms of like who decides who's cutting what sketch, like how does that work? Is it purely a scheduling thing, or are they all like in a hat and you pick them out? Like,
we have there's like a grid that lists all the sketches in like the order that they're getting shot. So usually what happens is like we'll be cutting a sketch, and then it's like, okay, I know I'm finishing this like tonight, let me see what's next. And then you just kind of sign up as they go. There were a couple like recurring characters I know that got assigned to me just because I was returning from last season and had cut maybe those characters last season. Like the resurrection, for example.
yeah.
But otherwise, I think we all just kind of like, it's a little bit just like first come, first serve. Yeah, like I guess I'm doing this one. They come.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then what about the ordering of the pacing? Obviously, there's the through line of the end of the world story, which we'll talk about a little bit, but how are they quite set? Like Robyn knows what order they're going to be in the show, or is it just a feeling? How does that kind of work?
I mean, I think Steph could speak to this because you like kind of worked on the order too, and there's just there's a certain kind of sketch that you want to have in certain episodes. Like if there are too many hair sketches, you want to kind of spread those out. Too many lotion ashy sketches. I just can't believe these are storylines. It's great. Anyway, but yeah, there's a certain balance, I guess, that they try to achieve. I know Steph worked with Robyn on, you know, making sure the right sketches were in the right episodes.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating to watch Robyn work on what sketch should be where, because she has it down to like a science where she's just like, okay, we have this many sketches that have a guest star in them. This many are like, you know, you can't go from like day to day. It's like, here's a day to a night sketch, or here's like a musical sketch here and a like hair sketch, like Taylor was saying, or here's like, you know, it just, she has like very specific like formula that sets out what each episode should be. And obviously, like, you know, it changes as we build them and we're like, wait, that doesn't seem like it makes sense in this episode anymore. Maybe it swaps with something else, or it might have to do with runtime. But yeah, she's pretty good at like narrowing down like what should land where, and at what point in the season. She's like, it makes sense to have this many guest stars in episode 5 versus 6, and I'm like, how do you know that? But cool. So
she's got it all right so far, so it's like, yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. And then in terms of the end of the world story, so obviously that's something that's run through all 3 seasons. How important, because it could, you know, there's lots of ways that these sketches could almost work, you know, you could remove that and the show would still work, right? You could have all the sketches together and it still work. But what, as your editors' minds, like what does that kind of having that through line add to the show in terms of enhancing it?
Well, I think one of the things it does, and we may all have different answers to this, but I think one of the things it does is it adds a certain element of cohesion all the way across the season. It's something, you know, these sketches on their own aren't necessarily related to each other, but as you follow this story that goes from season 1 to season 3, or, you know, even if you just take it from season 3 all the way through, there are little threads that help to weave each of these sketches together in some form or another. And I think it really gives you a sense of connection, in this sense of as you watch every week, something that you're hanging on to and looking forward to, and feeling like you're moving down a path with.
I think that's like a better answer than what I kind of created. I created some thesis of my own where I'm like, this is some kind of a metaphor for a life as a Black woman, where, you know, you have to laugh to keep from crying. A lot of times this end of the world through line is like where we live, how we exist. And then these sketches are just our reprieve, our way to continue existing, you know, just you gotta laugh at kind of all the ridiculous and absurdity that is this life that is about to, you know, that feels like it's going to be the end of the. So yeah, I made it probably much deeper than it is, but yeah, that's how I kind of like to see those interstitials.
I think that was a way better answer than mine, Taylor. Just want to toss that in.
Yeah, I think Robyn also, if you look at each season's interstitials, they're in like a totally different location. And every season we've had kind of different casts. Like we have the same kind of core cast that always returns, but sometimes it's like, here's like new characters or new people. So it kind of is a good way to introduce the new cast members and changes, I guess, to the show, but also to like tie each season. I feel like starts to tie a little bit more into the sketches that you're seeing. So like by the end of season 3, as you saw, suddenly a character from sketches, Dr. Hadassah, is now suddenly in this interstitial world, and all the sketches in that episode, that's like the final episode of season 3, you start to see these different like recurring characters meeting in like sketches that they wouldn't normally meet in. So it's like, it's interesting to see how, you know, this kind of end of the world storyline shifts and changes to kind of match the tone of the sketches of the season. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yes. And then
You're great.
And then it's sort of, I agree with what Steph says. It's starting to be like a melding. It's like the Robyn Thede universe. You know what I mean? It's sort of things are crossing the stream necessarily, and we're sort of becoming, you know, it's like a giant what if episode of a season. So yeah.
There's lots of fun. What I really love about it as well is those little like tinges of the supernatural, you know, those kind of moments of like, hang on a minute, like what kind of universe are you in? And she has a lot of fun with that, you can tell. So what's it like? I mean, you've spoken a bit about working with Robyn and the other writers. How does that process go? You mentioned about table reads. Are you guys there for that? Where are you on set? Like, how involved in the process are you throughout?
We're really not in the table reads necessarily. We don't really, I mean, mostly by the time we get the scripts, they've been done. At least, you know, they were done, you know, like a year before, you know, I think they started shooting or something. So, and Robyn knows every sketch backwards and forwards. So, and she was on set for everything that got shot. So every improv that happened, you know, she remembers, weren't we over here and we were saying something about whatever, you know, and you're like, right, and I know exactly where that is. And because every, you know, you kind of want you know, you sort of get footage that's just the script, and then you get the extra footage is the improv stuff that's kind of off the cuff and wild. And you just sort of want everything to, you don't want to like overplay the improv too much, you know what I mean? So yeah, you have both pieces of it. So
Do they?
I mean,
You go, Taylor. You go.
I felt pretty involved, I think, from the beginning. I know we weren't actually like in a room where they were reading, but they did allow us to kind of jump into the Zoom and watch them kind of go through their script and you know, watch the table read that way, which was really helpful, just to kind of one, especially if our cast was if all of our cast was at the read, we'd kind of see how it sounded, like the rhythm of it, and get an idea of how we'd want to cut it, if we were going to cut it. It was, I loved it, or even had ideas about, like, you know, what music could go here, what, you know, how we could make Ashley look in with this line here, you know, just whatever came to mind, we were able to conceive it before the actual dailies came in. And I thought that was helpful. And there was also kind of this grid that Robyn created that gave us references, different movies and shows and other sketches too from other shows to look at while we had dailies, just for inspiration and ideas, and the tone that they were going for. So I just feel like she really, you know, she thought about post from the very beginning, and how to make our jobs easier and the sketches as best as they could by incorporating us so early.
Yeah, I think Robyn is really like, she's a champion for post always. She's just kind of like, what do you guys need? Like, if she knows someone's cutting a sketch and like has a specific way she wants it done, or has like thoughts about it, she'll always kind of reach out, which is nice. And like, yeah, Black Lady sketch show table reads are not like your usual table read either, because it's like they're full on acting out these things. They're not just reading off the pages. You get to see, like, here's Gabrielle, like, you know, doing full on like splits on the floor in the middle of a table read on Zoom. And you're like, huh, okay, cool. But you can see, like, you can see what the physicality of that character is going to be. And Robyn will kind of go through, like Taylor was saying, on this kind of like spreadsheet Bible of like references and everything we need to know for the sketches. You know, here's a link to, you know, this is, you know, referring to like a Wes Anderson movie, or this is referring to like Orphan, the horror movie, or whatever, and it'll always have a link to like, here's a clip from it. So it's, yeah, I think she's very good at like keeping us in the loop of what's happening.
On a sketch like Locked In, where our two characters, Robyn and Gab, were breaking up with each other in a very romantic comedy kind of way. I was going through tons of clips of romantic comedies, you know, ones that I enjoy, or ones that, you know, like The Notebook and stuff like that, where you can pull elements from that genre and make it really familiar. But then, you know, all of Robyn's sketches, for the most part, have some kind of twist where you turn the genre on its head. So in that particular one, turns out it's a loctician and her client breaking up, and so you can really push genre forward and then find ways to turn it on its head. And it, you know, the other one I was thinking of is the heist sketch, which I watched a ton of scenes from Ocean's 11, and I watched, you know, Indiana Jones, where he's switching the stuff on the table. I can't even remember what it was, but
yeah,
you know, I think
diamond like stuff.
right. And
yeah.
I think those genre pieces really inform a lot of how we approach these sketches, and also inform how we approach the twists and doing things to take your expectations for genre and then flip them around and make them hilarious.
I think the beauty about this show is that you don't, like, the best references are our personal experiences. I think a lot of what made these sketches funny to me are like when you with Locked, it was my experience with having to switch hairdressers and how hard it is to find a good hairdresser, and how your hairdresser often becomes your friend, and, you know, having to like break up with them for a reason is feels like a breakup. Or like, we all know a Dr. Hadassah, we all have them in our lives, and, you know, it's, I mean, all of these like really these funny elements are funny on their own, but I think because we've experienced them, we can bring that element to the cut in a way that's not, you can't really get it from, you know, any other film. It's really just based on our own experience. And yeah, I think that's why this show is just so brilliant to me.
So going on to the I think I want to ask sort of one more question about the show, and then two other questions about the future and advice. So this is the only season, am I right, that the ending credits like had a bit of extra, they're not really outtakes, they're just extra bits, right? Who did someone have that idea to do that more because you wanted to get more in, or where did that come from, like the ending credits having the footage in?
We used to, in the past seasons, we had those outtakes, but they played after the credits rolled, so it's like not everyone knew they were there. They're just,
and that's the mean thing about Amazon and Netflix, they just kind of that's naughty. Yep. I didn't see those.
Yeah, so they have them at the very end, but this season I think it was just kind of a combination of like, because we had more sketches this season and more content, so it was like finding a way to pack in as much like funny as we can in the episode, but then we're like, oh shoot, but we're going to be like a minute over if we do like the usual, let's put the outtakes at the very, very end. So it just kind of was born out of trying to, well, just changing it up a little, because even the interstitial music, I don't know if you noticed, this season was totally different than the last couple, right? Like it changed tonally since the world changed. And that includes the end credit music. So I was like, why don't we just try this and see what it feels like? And then it ended up working out in all the episodes. So yeah.
And what about the opening credits? Because they as well change a bit like each time. And it's one of those things where I think we take it for granted. We sometimes think shows, oh, it's always the same and you skip it or whatever. But you're always watching these because, so did one of you cut all of those, or did you take it into, like, did you each do a different one?
Yeah, I cut the opening this season. It was kind of, it used to just be one, like it was just one credit, right? It was just kind of like Robyn Thede as, like it was just the one. And then I think we just had so many different variations of those credits, right? Because there's so many ways that you could play up. It's kind of like this old dynasty themed, like old soap opera themed credits. So we had a version where it was like Braden's voice was like the voiceover, and which was, I thought, amazing, but didn't end up in the final cut. But it we just went through so many iterations of it, and then ultimately, like the things that worked in the past seasons, like last season, every single episode the opening was a little bit different, right? It was going through like that different world
Yeah,
know?
that's it. This season it was the text itself changed, wasn't it? Right. And then
Yeah.
the cut was the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And we knew that like people really liked that last season. So it was like we just kind of played with like, what if we just had like insane amounts of text, and by the final episode, like you barely see them on the screen. It's just so much text that you know, that's like the whole joke. So it's kind of just a fun little like Easter egg. Robyn loves like Easter eggs. Like if someone really is a fan, they'll just keep watching the opening titles, assuming something will change, which it always does. So yeah, it was an evolution. I still wish that the version with Braden's voice existed somewhere, just so that the world could see it. But
It's the thing with editing, like your temp voice is always somewhere in something, isn't it? Yeah. So Edit Girls is all about sort of next generation, like inspiring people and the importance of sharing stories to feel that you're represented and feel that this could be a career for you. So each of you, if you were to give one piece of advice for someone who wanted to enter the world of editing and post-production, what would it be? And maybe specifically for young Black women, what advice would you give?
Well, I'll start and say I think that one of the most important pieces of advice that I got when I was starting out, it very, very simple. A director told me, you have to pursue what you want to do. Directors direct, writers write, editors edit. If you want to be an editor, if you want to be involved in anything, you have to follow that thing and learn the craft and, talk with people who are doing it, watch videos, analyze, but most importantly, do it yourself. There's all kinds of roadblocks that we, especially as creatives, tend to put in front of ourselves to say, yeah, I would do this, but I got this. I really want to cut some shorts, but I don't have this time or this resource. And I think the wonderful thing about the time we're living in right now is you can do so much of this stuff with things that you interact with every day. Your phone, your laptop, you go to a library and use their stuff. Like any library has iMovie. And I think the main point is if you want to pursue editing, which you absolutely should, it's such a wonderful profession, then just get involved with editing. Just start editing, and you'll get better as time goes on, and you'll find new creative ways to tell stories that will be meaningful to you. And if they're meaningful to you, they're going to be meaningful to other people too. So editors, edit. Just start editing.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Bradinn said, like just persistence is everything, I think, in this industry. Like even if it's something small, even if you're just doing like a TikTok video and it feels like, oh, no one's gonna see this, like why am I even doing this? Like everything that you do, you will learn something, and it 100% will come in handy later. Like you don't know where or when, but that's like the beauty of editing, is just that like you learn something new on every project that you work on. Like I've learned something from all of the editors sitting here. It's like everything that you do, you're like, oh, here's someone who worked on this, and like this is how they approach this type of thing. So I think once, when that opportunity arrives, if you're prepared for it, like the path where those things intersect can be like a magical thing. So just persist always.
Yeah,
I think, go ahead, Taylor. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Taylor.
I think echoing this is something Daisha Broadway said, seasons 1 and 2, but just kind of make it known wherever you can that this is something you want to do. Don't be, afraid to reach out to editors whose work that you like or are inspired by. It's not, we don't receive like tons of fan mail or anything, so it's very easy to just send an email, and a lot of times very flattering to receive one on our end, saying, hey, I want to get into this, what's the best way, do you have any advice, or what's your obviously do your due diligence and look things up on your own, but yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and just, I know I got some of my opportunities by asking people about their start, and not even asking them to help me get there, but just being curious. And they were kind enough to kind of just reach back and, give me the resources I would need to learn and introduce me to people that'd be helpful later on. So you never know what could come of just kind of making it known that this is what you want to do. And yeah, don't be scared. We're very nice.
I would like to say that Taylor stole my answer. And yes, I agree with all of that. It's funny that, I think a lot of what I learned early on is actually the politics of being an editor, which is something that you don't really, because, you think you're just going to be able to edit, but it's really the relationships that you have with people and getting yourself out there. I won't speak for anybody else here, but I know that, you sit in a little box and you think you're playing with your, toys and, footage, and then that's it. But it really is what's also outside of this that will get you a job that you want. And it really was about me hanging out with people and asking questions, and how do you do that? And can you show me, and then having people really be gracious and say, yes, I will. And, oh, yes, I will look at this cut. Here's where I think you can make improvements on how you're telling this story. A lot of it is putting yourself in that position of asking, would you please, do you have time? Can I sit in with you? You know what I mean? And being able to speak up to people that you don't know, or you don't know yet. And Taylor's right. Most of us are very nice people. And we don't get fans. We're not the director or the writer or the actor. And we do make cool things happen that you wouldn't notice, but we know all the tricks. We know where the actor flubbed their lines and we covered it up with flowers or whatever, you know what I mean? So and it's always gratifying to share that knowledge, because Braden's right. I don't think people realize how easy it is to make these things with everyday tools, but you also have to sort of know how to fit into that flow with your director, your producer, because it's not just about the job you have now, it's the job that you want later coming up, So, and that's what you want to sort of present yourself as capable of making that new show, you know what I mean? So.
Amazing advice. And I was going to say, I've never met an editor I didn't love, which is not entirely true, but 99.9% are amazing. And, you just like, the reason I've done Edit Girls for so long is I've just met some incredibly special people, and everyone has been, the connections that I've seen made, like you should see the DMs and then it goes, like it's just so special, the people that you're able to connect, and the dots, and the fact that you're in a room with people and you get to know, you make real friendships, and yeah, it's such a special job. So what's on the horizon for everyone else? Like Taylor, you were saying, like just before we started recording, about how you were very quickly humbled to working on your from being on the stage with your Emmy to going through your dailies. So are you able to talk about any of the projects you guys have coming up next? Anything you want to shout about or share?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right after I got home, I think the very next morning, I woke up to a few emails and had to jump in to look at dailies for a show a horror feature called Birth Rebirth. I'm super excited about it. I really couldn't wait to jump on it again, so it wasn't, an issue, but I was very humbled. I was like, nope, you're still working, like enjoy this tonight, take pictures with the award, but then you're getting back in the chair in the morning. So but yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and should be out next year, and very excited about it.
I'm going to go next because I'm actually going right into a music spot session. So I got to go. I am on New Amsterdam season 5. So I just got my first episode locked, and that's why we're going into the music spot session. And yeah, so that's what I have right now.
Awesome. And if you need to go, Robyn, I don't want to hold you up.
Yes.
So,
Appreciate it. See you guys later.
thanks so much for being here. Thank you.
I also, it's funny because I was just thinking today about how unfair it is that we come from this incredible high moment, getting this Emmy, and now I'm right back in the grind here. But the project I'm working on right now is a Hulu limited series called Washington Black, and should be out next year.
I'm also working on a feature right now that'll be out next year. I can't tell you a ton about it yet, but Taylor and I also have a show that's coming out in the next like 2 or 3 weeks called Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, which is
I'm super excited about this.
Very different from a Black lady sketch show. And then I also have another show called History of the World Part 2. Which is the follow-up to the old Mel Brooks film, History of the World Part 1. So that'll come out, I think, early next year.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Yeah, I know that editors of all kinds will get so much out of our chat. So thank you, and huge congratulations again on your very well-deserved Emmy win.
Thank
Thank
you
so much. Thank you for having me.